Welcome to a brand new episode of Power Moves. On this episode, I chat with Len T. Wong of Len T. Wong and Associates with REMAX Complete in Calgary, Alberta. And on this episode, we chat about Len's journey with REMAX because he was with REMAX, left REMAX, and then he returned to the brand. And he talks about why he returned to the brand, and beyond that, how some of his clients reacted when they heard that news. We also talk about the first lesson Len learned during his very successful real estate career and how the real estate transaction is an emotional one. And he dives into why it was important to really wrap his head around that fact and how that served him well over his career. We talk about team culture and several other aspects. And then at the end of the conversation, we discuss the fact that Len has been a basketball referee for 50 years. And he discusses how that has actually helped him in his real estate career as well. I know you're going to love this episode of Power Moves. From REMAX, this is Power Moves, where we talk with some of the best REMAX affiliates in the network. My name is Wade Patterson. I'm an executive director with REMAX, and I'm your host for this audio experience. And on this episode, I'm joined by Len T. Wong of Len T. Wong and Associates with REMAX Complete in Calgary, Alberta. With more than 35 years of experience, Len has sold more than $1.5 billion in properties and received all of the top REMAX honors, including the prestigious Luminary of Distinction Award. For the past decade, Len has consistently ranked amongst the top 5 agents among the 8,000-member Calgary Real Estate Board for most listings and homes sold. Len, welcome to Power Moves.
Thanks, Wade.
Excited for this conversation, and let's start way at the beginning, talking before real estate, because my understanding is that you went to school in Vegas and your studies were actually around the hotel industry. So I'm curious, how did you land in this career of real estate? And was there any learnings from that education that actually helped you in this particular industry?
Well, I was born and raised in Calgary. And so, of course, I always was intrigued with the hotel, management system. My father actually, was in the real estate game for like almost 35 years. So basically I ended up, following his footsteps. And then I took a break and went down to school. What I learned about the hotel industry was probably more than anything was dealing with, people skills, people persons, learning to read people, awareness, and just being in the hospitality business because, real estate's very similar in that way.
So Len, it was interesting. I came across a YouTube video where you were talking about one of the earliest lessons you learned in your real estate career is that often clients are making an emotional decision versus a logical one. So I'm curious how you learned that lesson and then also how that's been beneficial for you in your real estate career.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I really worked on the psychology component, right, of understanding people. And actually, you'll get a story about this one was when I first decided to get into real estate, I had a choice between commercial real estate or residential real estate. And I did work for a commercial broker for a while. And what I found with commercial was it was very ROI, numbers driven and all that stuff. And so basically I didn't like that as much. And so an emotional buy is, buying a house is probably one of the top 3 things in someone's, life to buy. And so that's one of the things I really enjoyed, meeting people, educating them and selling them. And most of all, when you sell them a house or both ways of buying or selling, the emotional excitement was what I really loved.
I want to talk a little bit about your journey with REMAX because my understanding is you were with REMAX and then you went a little bit of a different route. And then recently you decided to come back home. And what prompted that decision to return to the balloon?
Well, I was with REMAX for 25 years and I really enjoy the journey. And what I was looking for is I think the market and things like that shifted a little bit. And what I decided to do was I ended up another REMAX broker that we were part of through our group of coaches and elite systems out there. We kind of stayed in touch. And so what happened was I decided to eventually switch over to this mini brokerage, which he left REMAX too. And so basically, we felt that it was intriguing because of some of the programs that we had. And then I achieved all the accolades and things. And at the end of the day, it's your, I think relationship, your imaging, your brand is what's going to help. So I went for 7 years to the small brokerage, and then I felt with also my team and a couple of managing partners, I decided it was time to kind of come home. And part of the reason is I just wanted to make sure that I've been doing it for 36 years, and I wanted to make sure I left my two managing partners a solid foundation, and REMAX was the answer.
That's awesome. And, one thing we were chatting about before we hit the record button is the fact that you are a very recognizable name in Calgary. I went to college in Calgary, and I'm very familiar with your marketing. So you clearly have this strong brand already. How does the power of the REMAX brand complemented with that reinforce it?
Yeah, I think the REMAX brand definitely complements it. It adds that, maybe that gap filler at times, and maybe they know me. But I think really at the end of the day, we were looking for our brand REMAX to complement what we have, because you're right, Wade. I mean, I've established my brand and basically, but however, I wanted to make sure that I continued my legacy and give my managing partners a real big boost. Candace Sly Walker and Steve Cabaccia, who've been with me for a long time.
Do your clients have any sort of reaction when you make this type of change? Like, do you hear anything? Do they notice? Like, are they happy about the switch back to REMAX?
Yeah, it was funny. I would say to you, 20 to 30% of the people were surprised but intrigued, and they were actually happy. So I think it doesn't definitely, hurt you how you present it. But I think, REMAX has an excellent brand, as you know, and I think that was one of the things that maybe helped us, give that little bit of that boost that we needed to just get everybody excited.
I was talking about in the bio the fact that you have won basically every award that you can win within the REMAX ecosystem. But I read an article recently that was talking about, while the awards are nice, that's not the number one thing you're focused on. The number one thing you're focused on is more the client reviews. So why are client reviews something that are so coveted for you?
Well, one of the things I've learned in the business is, you're right, all the accolades are great and you get all the glory at that time. But at the end of the day, what I've learned with my experience is to clients first. So if you look after the clients first, and I instill that with my team too, that if you look after the clients first and don't worry about commissions and things and those type of things, it'll pay back forward to you. So that's what I found, is that if you give the client the experience, and that's what I've created as kind of a concierge department from learning from my 36 years, then at the end of the day, your reviews and all those things will be positive.
One question I've received from agents from time to time is how you go about like truly capturing those reviews effectively. And I'm wondering if there's anything you can share with maybe some of the agents who are listening to this, of what's your process for not only ensuring that it's a great client experience, but then that they actually do go and leave you the review as well.
Well, what we try to do is that as soon as the deal is done and you've hopefully had the good experience, that's the time to follow up with people. Because what I've learned with time is always that small percentage, right? You get the deal done and they only remember what they remember. So I've learned that at that point, when the deal has been transacted, at that time, you ask for the review. We've tried different situations there where we try to remind them a couple times if they haven't. And sometimes too, depending on the situation, we might kind of say, would you like us to help you write something, or do you not? So again, sometimes it is, but we're finding generally the Google reviews and those type of reviews are positive, and you just have to unfortunately stay on top of it. That's one of the things we've had to learn too.
You talked earlier a little bit about like the systems and the education of what you want to be providing your team as well. And I'm curious, as a team leader, how would you describe your approach to your leadership style?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned over time is to, understand that, every agent is different. So you have to learn their type of needs. If you've got a little more, we use one of the profiles, like the DISC profile as an example. The other thing we've learned too, which one of the reasons we brought on, is that we use the strengths-based program. So what we want to do is utilize their strengths rather than, traditionally we always take the cup half full or half empty. So we've learned really successful that if we take the strengths and build from that, they'll be more successful than taking their negatives and trying to rebuild it, if that makes sense.
And then when we talk about culture within a team, I mean, culture is from time to time a little bit of a buzzword that's tossed out there, but what does culture mean to you? And how do you ensure that your team has a really strong culture as well?
Yeah, that's probably a really good question. It's one of the things that being in the business and going through, numbers and stuff like that was creating the culture first. If you create the culture first, then everything else will fall into place. I think that's one of the things that we did. It is a competitive market, but what we try to do is create the culture where we back each other up. Yet it's competitive, but I also think if we provide the basic fundamentals of the systems and things that we want to provide. And then what I want them to do is if I walk into an appointment, I want the next person on the right to be the same. That's our goal. And then I always tell people that you work at 80% of what Len T. Wong and Associates wants, and then you put your 20% of that your personality in there.
And what can you dive deeper into the details of, because I know you have this mentorship coaching program, like what does that look like incubating a new agent who comes on board?
Yeah, what we try to do is that, with Steve and Candace's help, they do a lot of the operational, but what we want to make sure is that, one, we give them their expectations. I think the number two thing is more than anything is accountability to yourself first. So, because if you're not accountable to yourself from that perspective, then you won't be successful. The other thing that we've learned is the onboarding process. I think it's really important to onboard them properly, make them understand. They have to do their homework. We look at things like building your sphere of influence, giving a list of people that you have, which then helps them, kind of, oh yes, remember those people. And then we provide them with a system like a CRM system, contact management system to be successful. And our program we have, if you text, email, call, even records phone calls, that helps them, eliminate the path of least resistance, if that makes sense. I want them to be organized, and their time is valuable, and we want to make sure that they're accountable to them and to us.
We're recording this at an interesting time. So it's September, the time of recording. By the time this is released, it's probably going to be October, which means we're getting close to the end of the year. And one thing that a lot of people start thinking about is the new year and what goals they want to achieve for the new year. And I'm curious, Len, what is your process with yourself and with your team when it comes to goal setting? And you mentioned accountability there. How do you keep yourself accountable to hit those goals as well?
Well, what we try to do is, a couple things. We do a boot camp with our team 4 times a year. So on top of the REMAX programs are out there. So that way we start at the beginning of the year and say, okay, what are your goals? What are you achieving? And then we have your quarterly reviews so that we know what's going on. So that's one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we do, because we ask our agents also that they have to be accountable. We make them make phone calls every week. We have ISAs. We have people so we have our machine running. That's how we make the success of everybody, from there. And then at the end of the year, we'll do another review and say, okay, how have you achieved it? What did you not succeed? Why didn't you succeed? And so that way, then we're ready for the beginning of next year.
I love that. Len, I want to transition and talk a little bit about mindset, because my understanding is there's some key activities that you do, whether that's yoga or walking or golfing. Why is mindset an important thing? Because we all get very busy with our real estate careers, but why is it important to sometimes step aside and focus on some of those other activities?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I've had to learn that sometimes the hard way, right? Anywhere from being, I think the really thing that I've learned with your partners or whatever is, even is being present. And that's one of the things. And it's easy for us in our industry is that we can get distracted on the phone and all that stuff. So I really work hard, and I'm still working at it, always making sure. I think it starts with the phone first and trying to, make sure that you clear your calendar and make those things. And I also believe that you need downtime from a mental perspective of energy and that type of stuff. So things like a walk or yoga, I like to play golf and I like to bike. So I try to make myself available to force myself to take the time off, and then you come back re-energized. And I think that's one of the things that is really important. And, life's short. As I tell people, it's really important to experience life at its fullest and take advantage of the accolades and the success of real estate, but also don't forget about your personal time and family, because it's a tough business. And that's one of the things that I really push hard for with my team.
Is it true as well that you've been refereeing basketball for like multiple decades? And the reason I bring this up is like, that doesn't sound like stress relieving to me. That sounds like adding more stress onto it. Why do you love refereeing basketball?
Well, it was funny because I started off as what started me is that I've been, believe it or not, Wade, this would be my 50th year of basketball refereeing. So I've been
Wow.
pretty blessed. I mean, I've refereed at university, college levels, all the way down. It is a different type, but you have to focus, know the rules. I think it's another skill to learn how to deal with people because you are emotional, you're intense. That's one of the things. So it's helped me be successful in the industry. I think it's one of the things that I've learned with myself is that I'm very active, and you'll laugh at Steve and Candace. So I'm like an energizer buddy, or my assistant might call me the Tasmanian devil. But when I walk in and do that, but I think what I learned a lot of the time is that, if I don't elevate myself, and that one of these is always keep a calm demeanor, then I'm able to deal with things at a better pace than I had at upper level. So that's one of the things that I do. And I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about basketball. And, the biggest thing in reward, Wade, is that I've been doing it for so long, and I've refereed many people at upper levels, and you'll get a kick out of this, where I've had people come, at university or college levels, it goes, and then the kids, I referee the kids now, and they go, you ref my mom or you ref my dad.
Wow.
And we'll laugh, and I'll tease them, and I go, just, tell your kids, tell your mom and dad that you're a better ball player. And then and they would say something, and we would have, so that's some of the humor. And I've enjoyed the experiences. And when people come up to me and say, you know what, you're one of the best refs, or you one of the things, and, and I was a bit of a intense guy or girl in the basketball court. And you know what, Len, you always talk me down. And those are the compliments that I can't turn down.
Totally. Yeah, I can see how that would be really valuable skill set to build upon. I want to tie up this theme of mindset with one last question on it, which has to do with, you've clearly had this very successful career in this business. Is there a book or a piece of advice or something that really landed with you that has been the foundation of your career?
I've been blessed over the years. I've met a lot of coaches, anywhere from Howard Britton to Craig Proctor to a lot of these people that are real estate gurus. From that perspective, Tom Ferry, all these people. But I think those are things that I tell people that, don't reinvent the wheel. Those are people that, depending on each fit, you need to do. The other fundamental book actually was a book called The E-Myth that was really funny, because what I learned is that you have to learn to leverage yourself. And what I mean by that is that I may be really good at something really strong in marketing, but I'm very poor at detail. So if I can tell people anything is that, you can't do it all. However, recognizing that, as you grow as a realtor, you might hire an assistant, and you might do these type of things. I mean, today's technology, believe it or not, you could even do things like virtual assistants and things, which we have. So I think that's one of the things is that, you want to work on the quality things and not on the, things that take a lot of your time. So that's what I would say is with the coaching. I mean, the book was a very fundamental book, E-Myth. There's a lot of other individual books about mindsets and things, but I think everybody's different. I'm not a reader per se. I'm more of an audiobook person. So that's one of the things that I try to work on all the time.
I'm the same as you. Audiobooks I can get through. If it's a reading book, it takes me far, far too long. So we're on the same page there. Len, this has been a great conversation. How we like to end every interview of Power Moves is by asking you that very question. What is your power move when it comes to real estate? So you've already talked about your leadership style, about the importance of culture, about the refereeing and the calm demeanor. What would you say, if you had to pick one, is your power move when it comes to real estate?
I think what I've learned is don't reinvent the wheel. And what I mean by that is that there are so many tools and things out there. Even AI is changing. So what I tell people is that you need to be aware of the technology. You need to be path of least resistance. And, I think you want to be efficient, and life is too short. And I think if you're organized, which I think today's market, an agent coming in or an experienced agent, there's so many tools out there that right now that'll be a lot more that I wish I had when I got into the business 35 years ago, because that part. So hopefully that makes sense, is that there's a lot of tools out there, and REMAX has a lot of those tools. And that's one of the reasons that we came back.
I love that. A great tip to end on. Len, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Power Moves.
You're welcome. Thank you.